I'm being recorded. Everybody can hear me. I used to run up the stairs of the library at the River Forest Library, and I think most in the room here remember card catalogs, the paper card catalogs. So I used to run up the stairs and used to run straight for the card catalog to the T's to travel. This is in the second grade. And my interest in travel was mostly the process of travel. So how you get places, flying, train, cars, all of those fun things. It wasn't so much just the travel, dreaming to travel, but the actual process. And so as I grew up and got into high school and got the open water scuba instructor at 19 years old, started running trips in college. And then I was like, hey, this is a pretty cool industry. I think I can survive and make some money. So event management career in addition to that. And then I had a wholesale travel business, which I still have, working with dive stores, clubs, dive travel leaders, running trips all over the world. And leading up until the pandemic, about 90% of my business was to Indonesia, Maldives, Philippines, Thailand, Borneo, so that's in Malaysia, and those areas. And as everybody knows, what happened during the pandemic. So that's about 58 years old. Took a little time off, and then realized at the age of 60, I still love to travel, and I still love work travel. So I got back from my 60th birthday in Hawaii, and a friend of mine that works at Delta Airlines, who had sold some companies and was a flight attendant, said, "You should be a flight attendant." Flight attendant? I never had anything against flight attendants. But I applied to 4 of the major air carriers, got hired at 3, went to training at 1 2 summers ago, made it through 5 weeks, and my 93-year-old father was hospitalized with pneumonia. Made a very snap decision to take a leave of absence from that airline, went back up to Chicago. My dad died 12 days later. So that was a good decision. For those in the room, I think many of us are at an age where we've lost parents, so figured my dad, Delta will be around for longer than my dad was going to be around. So, but I ended up at American Airlines. So I, in addition to all the other travel entrepreneur work I do, I have been flying since last April as a flight attendant for American Airlines. So as part of this presentation, I'm going to show some images, but if you have any questions about the inside of what goes on at airlines, because everybody in the room has flown many, many times, so you hundreds of times all over the world, but we'll open the floor to question and answer fairly soon here. I'll show these images. I've got a couple videos. And then those of you, how many of you heard me speak before? By the way, Adrian, very nice to see you. And I saw Dell. It's been quite some time, but it's good to see you all. Is there one question? Does anybody have a burning question before I launch into, I generally, fire, Leslie? Okay. This photo, since we have, you all are very experienced travelers, and I know that many of you have traveled all over the world. How many people are diving in the Coral Triangle? That would be Philippines, Thailand, Indonesia. Yeah, about half the room. When I go to most presentations, sometimes only about 5 or 6 hands go up, because the Caribbean is much easier to get to. San Carlos is much easier to get to. And for those of you who've been diving for several decades, you know these places require a high level of patience to get to now. But we'll do a little interactivity here. Who in the room knows where this photo might have been taken? Any other guesses? You are a very smart guy, David. That was taken right before the pandemic in Corona, actually. So there are dugongs in Corona. I had been doing most of my diving in Tubataha. How many folks have been to Tubataha? All right, Del, thumbs up. Takes a little getting to. Some of the best diving in the world, some of the best dive experiences. It is in the Sula Sea, about, help me out, Del, maybe 30 hours from Puerto Princesa. You get on a liveaboard boat in the Philippines, yes. It's only about 30 hours from Puerto Princesa, and it is in a remote part. But anyways, Coron is just north of that area, and there are lovely schools, actually. You'll see sometimes 6, 7, 8 dugongs in the water. It's a little bit murky. And by the way, most of my photos, not all of them, are taken. I'm not a professional photographer, kind of an amateur, but I like people to actually see photos and the way they look. So go to the next one. Sure. Any idea where that might have been taken? I know, right? It could be. Very good. Very good answer. That is actually taken in the Maldives. Image is fairly old. And you can go to the next one. This photo is taken by Sean Heinrichs. If anybody's familiar with Sean Heinrichs, any idea where this photo might have been taken? Actually, no. Getting closer, right off of Isla Mujeres. So the microphone is still skipping a little bit. So I hope that, so the folks that are on Zoom, we apologize for that, but I'll try to keep. Generally speaking, in that part of Mexico, in that area, there's Holbox, which is north of Cancun. Yes. So as you all know, having been diving, quite advanced group here in the room, this is plus or minus a few weeks, but generally it's in the late June, July, August timeframe down there. So it is snorkeling only, and they take quite a few people up there. So we'll talk during the talk a little bit later about how to best navigate the groups of the masses of people that are going there, but this is taken there. All righty. Anybody know what that creature is? It is an oceanic manta. And any idea where that might have been taken? Indonesia. Doug and Adelina. Any idea where in Indonesia? Raja Ampat. Actually, in the Mosul region, it's in a dive site called Magic Mountain, which is near Mosul Eco Resort, and there's a lot of liveaboards that go out there. And if you hit it properly, you can see both oceanic mantas and reef mantas. And this happens, I'm pretty sure this is an oceanic manta because of the size of it. All right, next shot. That was my image, but it doesn't look it. This one's easy. Where do you think this is taken? It was in the Red Sea. Good guess. Silver sides with decent corals in there. Next image. This is, could be anywhere. I don't remember where it is. Yeah, Indonesia, that's right, the Philippines. So, all righty. A Nassau grouper. Cuba. That is in Avalon. How many folks have been to Gardens of the Queen? Yeah. Thumbs up, Adrian. Yep, good experience. In my opinion, that area, because of it being protected, although it's outside of that biodiversity coral triangle and some of the other Fiji and those areas, this diving, in my opinion, is some of the best diving in the Caribbean. So it takes a little getting to, but there's a decent amount of marine life in the water. Most in the room have been to Cozumel many, many times, probably. How many folks have been diving down off of Mabul on the coast before you go out to Chinchorro Reef? Anybody been to Chinchorro Reef before? So that's, again, it takes a little getting to, but another area in the Caribbean, if you wanted something a little different, you're willing to travel a bit farther, down towards the northern part of Belize, just north of Ambergris Caye, across the border, is an area called Mabul, and there's very good diving off of that coast, and they have day trips out to Chinchorro. Interesting fact about Chinchorro, Chinchorro has fewer divers in an entire year than 1 day of diving in Cozumel. Yeah. Hey, the diving in Cozumel is pretty darn good, though, still, for Caribbean diving. So during the pandemic, how many folks went during the pandemic? Mexico opened fairly early. Next image. How many folks have been diving in Indonesia? You see a lot of images here in Indonesia. This is in Indonesia. And any guesses to what part of Indonesia it's in? Banda Sea. How many folks have been to Banda? Liverboard, yeah. Liverboard diving. Strikingly, this image was taken about 5 years ago, right before the pandemic. However, this dive is right off of a village. And my friends Doug and Adelina, who drove down from Gilbert, can back me up on this. And those of you who've been there, you still in remote parts of Indonesia can literally have this quality of diving right off of villages in Indonesia. So if you've not gone there, highly recommend it. Aha, what is this? Blue ringed octopus. And what is something that is fairly well known about the blue ringed octopus? Yes, one of the most deadly and venomous creatures in the oceans. Roll the next one. Aha, where was this one taken? That's in Socorro, yes, right off of the boiler. How many folks have been diving off the boiler? Yes. Yep. And I think that's help me out. Is that an oceanic? Pelagic, yeah, pelagic mantle. Thrilling experience there. I am not touching it. Another friend of mine that's in the room has been diving with me, did some work for me. I'm not touch it, right? No, of course not. It looks like I'm touching it. Am I touching it? No, I'm not touching it. It's close. Incidental contact. Thank you, Carl. And I put 3 in there. That's okay. You can go to the next one. That's also. Who likes coral? Soft corals, hard corals, huge fields of staghorn coral. Melissa's Garden, Banda Sea, Indonesia. Takes a little getting to. Anybody know where this is? Jellyfish Lake in Palau. Have many of you in the room experienced Jellyfish Lake? Okay. And where else in the world is there Jellyfish Lake? That's right, Cakaban in Kalimantan, which is where my friend Adelina's from. Who likes to dive with underwater volcanoes? I've not done that diving there. Do they have some underwater bubbles coming up from the, yes. This is actually taken just off of Komodo, in the Komodo region. Yes. And a couple videos before we go into Q&A. Anybody have, has anybody experienced this diving with literally millions of silver sides? Yes. And this is where?
We are not sure if we do.
Does Bonaire still have some? Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. Great to hear. This is actually off the coast of Cebu in the Philippines. Thrilling experience. Alrighty, I think we might be. Is there one more? Is that it? Macro stuff. Most of this macro stuff is in Lemba. Who's been diving in Lemba before? Muck diving, critter diving there. Awesome stuff, huh? Wow, Adrian. Awesome. Yeah. What's on your list? Yeah. To experiences, yeah, or to go back to places. Blue ring octopus again. A better photo. And Melissa's Garden again. Yep. I'm born cuttlefish. Yep. One of my favorite underwater creatures. That's taken in Lemba as well. Might be. I don't know if it loaded. No worries. You've seen, many of you seen video images. Nudibranchs, any nudie fans in the room? All right. Yep. All over the world, fascinating. It's a sport in and of itself. Nudibranchs. And that's it. Awesome. All right, fire away with questions. You have my attention here for another, are we on time? What's your favorite trip dive you've ever done? Where is it? Oh my gosh, that's a great. I would have to say, for me, I like the biodiversity. So I've had some incredible shallow water dives in the Banda Sea and in Indonesia. So, and many of you have had in the Caribbean, having dived for many years, the hard coral gardens and soft coral gardens in the Banda Sea, Melissa's garden, you're talking 40 feet maximum, 30 to 40 feet. And so if you have not treated yourself to that part of the world, it does take a little getting to go to. But I would say that those are some of the highlights. But I'm also someone as a diver with several thousand long dives, action in the water. So I would say, how many folks in the room have been in the Maldives? Yeah. So the Maldives, in my opinion, I've had some of my most incredible dive experiences. I haven't been in a few years, but there's a bay called Hanafaro Bay, and there are some dive sites there that literally have hundreds of sharks, whale sharks. I think one time I was with maybe more than 10 or 11, 12 whale sharks, with mantas by the hundreds. I don't want to exaggerate. I'm not exaggerating. Yeah. People come up here, there were thousands of sharks, and they were so big. But no, literally some of the best big wide angle diving there, and also in the Banda Sea with hammerhead sharks, Cocos Islands, Galapagos. I'm a warm water diver now. I grew up in Chicago. I did my time in Chicago. Someone asked me this morning, I was non-revving out from Dallas, and the young flight attendants were asking me why I didn't bid for Chicago when I worked for American. And, and I said, it isn't so much, y'all get a little snow up in the mountaintops here, and it's pretty to look at. It's the darkness. It's the 40 days in a row of no sun. And like, oh, it's so hot in Texas, though. It's so hot in Arizona. I'll take hot weather all day long now. That's right. That's right. Yes. Yes, ma'am. Maria. Oh, thank you, Maria. Yes. I'm a little rusty on my speaking. Sheesh.
I guess I was curious to hear, right now we're hearing, that's detaining tourists from other places,
yep.
Venezuela is detaining tourists. How safe do you think it is to be traveling right now?
Okay, so the question is, and it was the title of my talk, so thank you for reminding me of that. You guys are hearts. Yes, so the question was, with all of the disruption and global concern over things going on globally, geopolitically, not to narrow in on one particular person, what are some of my feelings or concerns about that? So the word that I would use, and again, this is opinion. I'm a very apolitical person. And as an apolitical person, you get it from all sides, right? Those of you that are kind of apolitical. I'm politically engaged, but I'm kind of apolitical. The one word I would use is opportunity. Opportunity. I'm an economist. My mom is still alive at 92, going on 72. And during the pandemic, when things were a little bit, all those trillions of dollars, as an economist, it was like $5, $6, $7 trillion injected in the economy. I called my mom and I said, Mom, this is a lot of money. I was getting checks in the mail, like $1,200. And my mom was alive during the Depression. And she said, she's a home economist. She just have her master's in worked for Butterball Turkey. Anybody have Butterball Turkeys? She went to work after my dad retired for 25 years at Butterball Turkey. So she didn't have to cook Thanksgiving dinner anymore. Mm-hmm. And she said, oh, honey, it could get very dark at some point in the next several years, but we have tools now that we didn't have back in the 1930s. So it probably won't be a 15-year depression. Almost verbatim, she said that. So what I learned from that was I tend to agree with her. No one knows for sure what anything looks like. But no matter what happens, opportunity. And my friend Jacob, Dennis, they know question I get frequently is, when is the best time to go? Adrian, you get that question a lot. When's the best time to go? Now is the best time to go, as soon as you can. So no matter what happens within the economic or political situation, I'm not trying to make light of the seriousness and the feelings associated with it and the energy. It's my belief that it's a great opportunity, because I'll give you some of the inside information on the airline industry about allegedly my company has 110,000 employees, $55 billion in sales last year, 2.9 million passengers in the United States domestically alone every day. Travel demand in the past 3 months, March, 2 months, 22% decrease in foreign visitor arrivals in the past 2 months. That's a big number. So summer travel demand for my airline, allegedly, quite soft compared to what has been. Now, how much of that is just fatigue from people after the pandemic traveling a lot? But again, to answer your question, the opportunity there is if you're thinking about traveling somewhere, airfares could be starting to moderate, particularly for international travel. Domestic travel, still demand is fairly, I just talked to somebody today that paid quite a bit of money to fly from here to LA. They're paying quite a bit of money in May. I was a little bit surprised at that. But again, for international travel, you could give an opportunity. Did that answer the question for you? Or?
Well, I'm just wondering, well, for example, the person who I live with is very concerned, like, oh, you shouldn't be going to Mexico right now. Gaining tourists in America, gaining tourists in other countries,
right.
A lot.
Well, there's lots of news about things going on in Yucatan,
yep.
places like that.
So I don't know how much you know about that, since you're usually on the airplane and then getting back off the airplane, but if you're traveling.
Yeah. So there's perception and there's reality. For me, based upon what I know, I can usually tell when I'm speaking with friends and clients that have a lot of news on and are reading a lot of news. I get it. You want to be engaged. You want to be informed. I'm a numbers guy. I'm a probability guy. So when people are traveling, and I've known Dell and Adrian for many years, when I take groups or would go with a group occasionally, just be a little more careful when you're going. But don't let it stop you. So what I would say to someone like that is, because we get people now in the past 4 or 5 weeks with the airline incidents that have happened that are concerned. And look, if you're concerned at some level, there's not anything I'm going to probably to you that's going to convince you to not travel, maybe take a break. But to get in our car and drive home tonight, we are at exponentially more risk, really, at having a fatal car crash than we are getting on an airplane or going to the Yucatan. The only thing I would say when you're going to the Yucatan or you're going to these places, between 10 p.m. and 6 a.m., I'd stay near the resort. I wouldn't go out. If you think about it, when you look at the incidents that do happen, and they do happen, I'm not making light of it, but generally speaking, a very high percentage of them happen between 10 p.m. and 5 a.m. When I took groups to Thailand for 10 years in a row, 3, 4, 5 every year, resort takeovers. The 2 most nervous times for me as a travel wholesaler, there were the leaders, Adrian and Dell, people running the trips, and Leslie. They would come to me and say, hey, there's a group of people that want to rent mopeds. Now, those are the people that you're talking to. They're saying, gosh, everything's in the world. It's dangerous in Yucatan, and they're detaining people and everything. Hey, let's go and rent mopeds. You better wear a helmet. That's all I'm saying. So I'm a little bit contrarian on this, and I don't want to come off into people listening on Zoom as flippant, but opportunity, and I think that inflation is, my prediction is, you cannot, as an economist, I'll share with you, you could get economists to disagree on most everything, but most economists will share with you, if you continue to inject trillions of dollars into any system over history, and you don't have the service and product production to back it up, you've got to balance that out somehow at some point. So whatever that looks like. But again, even in that situation, no matter, and this really comes from my mom's comment, because my friends in the room know I'm an outgoing personality and I'm pretty direct and opinionated. But my mom set me straight. Don't get so concerned. Lean into opportunity. Prepare. I'm not saying you have to be a prepper or anything, but I say to folks, why not have some water supply in your house? Why not I have a friend here in town or somebody, I was saying, hey, you should have a supply of water. And she's like, you're never at home. Why would you have a supply of water at home? Go and get a life straw. How many people know what a life straw is? Yeah. So I went and got a life straw. Why not? You can go to REI and get one. So it's a good question.
So we're going to the Philippines.
We're going to the Philippines in 2 months. And you said airfares are going down. United Airfare, we've been tracking this.
I said could be going down.
Okay. $2,100 tonight. Paid $1,100 for it 3 weeks ago. So, but I know it's going to go down.
Yeah, and so I think what she backs me up on then, there's a lot of very experienced people, is things are volatile too. So this is my opinion. It's going to be a wild ride here for a while in terms of perceptive concern. A big part, any other economists in the room, people who study economics. So regardless of what you would say about economics, confidence is very important when it comes to consumers and that aspect. So anytime you're in a disruptive state, you'll get these wide swings and these volatilities, that are going on. But my advice and suggestion is just don't let it stop you. Because my friends that are in the room know I go to trade shows for decades, and I'll be standing at the booth. Sometimes they come and visit me. Hey, how's it going? I saw a guy, he's been coming to this convention for 8 years in a row, and he walks by the booth. I'm going to go there eventually. I'm going to go there eventually. I'm going to go there eventually. Yeah, sometimes 8 years in a row, you see the same person in Chicago. Our World Underwater, Patrick and Sherry Hammer, for years I presented, and that actually reminds me. So I used to present, they had huge turnout back in the day that was a great show. Great cause, the scholarships and everything like that. But I'm going to ask this question. This is like 10 years ago that I asked this question there. And it was about 100 people when I asked it. So the first thing that comes to your mind, raise your hand. How many people in the room, don't even think about it, just go with your instincts. How many people in the room think that they're a better driver than a driverless car? Raise your hand. Okay, it's gone down a little bit. So when I asked that question 10 years ago in Chicago, about 70% of the hands went up. I'm a better driver than a driverless car. I'm safer driving the car. And what I say is that's the reason why we probably will not have a widespread driverless cars. Because we feel like we're in control, right? I'm a better driver than a driverless car.
Tesla just ran into a wall painted to look like a ring.
That's right. And see, okay, yeah, sorry, on the Zoom. So we're talking about driving versus flying and driverless cars versus, and that again, perceptively, people see that image over and over and over again. And like, that's not going to be me. But the realistic aspect is that a driverless car, it's just studied, it's exponentially safer. But because of that, and because we have flight attendants who are on leave right now in this industry because of the incidents that have happened.
What's the incident?
The incidents of, oh yeah, so go ahead and explain. There was, I don't know, I wasn't even aware of it. What happened?
A Tesla ran into a wall that was painted to look like a road.
Yeah.
Where all of us would know the difference.
That's right.
The Tesla did not.
Yeah. So see, if you see that image over and over again, just we're a young species as humans, I'm not going to be able to convince you that a driverless car is safer than a driver. So when something like that happens, And so it's just, it's just a reality. So any other questions? How are we doing time-wise? Are we good? Are you learning something tonight, or is this helpful for you? Yeah. Okay. Any other? When is the best day to buy an airline ticket? So, yeah. Yeah. They used to say, so I'm friends with several of so the question is for the people on Zoom, when is the best day of the week to buy an airline ticket? Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Fridays, I think you've quite experienced in the room. I believe range. You have to look at range. So I will go and advise people, go to Google Flights, go to several of the third-party websites and have a look and see, and try to get a sense of what a range of the fare that would be a fair price, not the lowest price, but a fair price, and then strike when that gets there. So, that's a fairly generalized answer to people on Zoom, but, we generally know. So the Philippines, back in the day, we would fly for $700 round trip. Now, depending on the time of year, you're going near the start of summer. So this is when Filipino families will go back. Schools are just getting out. They want to go back and visit family. Airfares go up. So it's a supply and demand thing. But, I can't really say a specific day of the week, but I would definitely look at that range. So nowadays I say if anything to Asia under 1,500, buy it, and snap it up. In terms of that. Yes, sir.
As a traveler and a diver, there certain tricks you've learned what to take or what not to take, and how to get it through security, and how to get it on.
Yeah. So the question is, having had quite a number of years of experience, things to take, things not to take, how to pack, all of those things. This is a very individualized thing. It depends. I nowadays really try to travel efficiently and lightly. So for me, I find, and having done it, that carrying less is more for me. It's more fun, it's easier. So I'll try to really lighten up on the equipment that I own. They're making equipment that's lighter and lighter. I'll try to see where I'm traveling to see what they have that I can use when I get there and what might be included and not included. How many the folks in the room and on Zoom, you've traveled a lot, right? One of the things I try to do, and because working for the airlines now, we can bring as much as we want. I used to be that passenger who's like, the flight attendant has like 8 carry-on bags, and we're only allowed 1. Now I understand why I don't have 8 carry-on bags, to carry on. But generally speaking, traveling more lightly in today's world creates a more flexible environment to be able to do that. So what I was going to say was, when I'm packing now, I will look at everything I have and I'll say to myself, okay, I've many, many times taken all that stuff. What have I not used when I travel? Now, the only danger of doing that is you'll pull that item, those 2 items, and then when you get there, you're gonna be like, dang, I wish I'd had that item. I should have had it with me. But I think nowadays, with restrictions, the weight restrictions, and airlines being a little bit stricter about things, I was laughing with a friend here in Tucson today about a trip we had to the Maldives where I was 2 pounds over at Male Airport. And I just, I didn't want to pay $75 or $80 for the extra bag. Sometimes frugalness gets the better of me, because I was like, I was like 5 pounds under. So I took my BCD out and I put it on. I can't remember if you were on that trip with us. And so the agent at the airline, I can remember Singapore Airlines or Emirates or who it was, they looked at me and they said, you can't do that. And the people that know me in the room, I'm softer at 61 years old now. Would you be able to get your supervisor? So they went back. I kept it on. Supervisor came out, looked and said, I don't see a reason why I can't do it. And there's steam coming out of the check-in agents, ears. So, yes, ma'am.
It's my life jacket.
Duh.
I'm afraid of the water, and we're flying over water, and it's my life jacket.
That's right. That's right. It's my life vest, exactly.
Richard, you used to wear a photography vest.
Yes.
You used to put like 40
See,
pounds.
Dell knows the dark secrets now. So that's another strategy, is to be able to do that. So, but for me, your question's a really good one, but it's a highly personalized thing. But I find nowadays, I'll give you, we just got a few minutes left, I know. I will give you a little bit of a preventive health care hack. Any doctors in the room? Okay, good. So in the interest of disclosure, it came to me from a friend in Denver that I've dived with all over the world, Jeff Perry. And so how many people will get colds, viruses when you get home and, or when you're traveling? Are you guys all pretty healthy when you travel? Yeah. So I'm with up to 800 people a day now in the work at American Airlines, okay? And allegedly, if you put, maybe you know this travel actor, polysporin inside of your nostrils, okay? Allegedly, it reduces the chances, and that's one of the pathways for viruses and bacterial infections to spread. Allegedly, it reduces the chance that if you get exposed or you touch your nose with your hands, of you getting the virus or the bacteria. So you can opinion or fact check me online. I'm not a doctor, but I've been doing it since the beginning of this year. I've had no colds, no bronchitis. People in the room that know me know that I can be a little bit prone to that. So there you go. I also wear plastic gloves too because I'm a face toucher in terms of that. So maybe take a couple more questions and then we'll wrap things up, Dale. How is that? Are we doing time-wise? We're 8:02, right? So okay.
I have a question.
Yes.
Hi. I just want to quickly get back to the airfare because I too do groups that I advise people and I'm like, well, I better ask. Do you think it's better to buy like real early on, you're going to be taking a trip, but it's not going to be for maybe another, 6 or 9 months, buy early or wait to see, because I tell people just buy your tickets as soon as possible. I mean, at least you're going to get, get the flights you need. So what's your thoughts?
Yeah, Laura, that's a great question. And just to use the word range again, I don't think any of the travel websites, I'm a very creative person. For me, with the experience I have, I look at range on the tickets. And I think that, in an a potentially inflationary environment, if that fare seems like it's maybe, we always want the lowest price, right? Let's be like, come on, most people want that. Many of the people, not all, but many people want that lowest price.
The price conscious market.
That's right, because it's a fairly big spend, right? Airfare is can be, particularly on international travel long distance. But I do believe if you're looking at a trip that's more than 12 months away, just start looking at it, and get in your mind. And I think there's, I don't know those specific sites, Hopper or some of the other ones will actually give and answer some of these questions and do fare alerts. But I always advise people, if it's within that range of value, go ahead and buy it. It always reminds me of a story. I was in Nepal, and this is way back in the day, and I negotiated on this rug in Kathmandu for like a half hour with the guy, and back and forth, and and then it's back in the old days of the video camera, the big video cameras, and my friend that was traveling with me, after I bought it, looked at the guy with the camera and said, "Did you rip him off?" And he goes, "Yeah, I did." So, it's a blood sport to get the lowest fare. But again, I think that nowadays with inflation and with airfares being quite volatile, as long as you're not paying $2,100 or $2,200 for a ticket. But if you start looking, so to answer your question directly, my opinion, you want to start looking at it and maybe do the websites. Some of the third-party websites will do fare alerts. And then some of them have the trends where they'll sort of show the trends. But again, the topic of my talk tonight is about dealing with an inflationary environment, geopolitical. I think in this environment, if you're traveling far out and you get a fare that looks like it's within a decent range, even if it's maybe $200 or $300 higher than you might want to be paying, I would advise, my opinion, buy that ticket.
Okay.
So, and then you'll just maybe have to deal with what I dealt with that rug. Now, every time I look at that rug, I'm like, I got ripped off on that rug. I got ripped off.
Thank you.
Okay, so that's a great question on travel insurance, and it's maybe a good last question, or we'll take one more after this. So, in the interest of disclosure, I personally am an insurance averse person, but as I get older, a lot less insurance averse. So the question is, what about travel insurance? What about travel insurance? So what really changed my mind about travel insurance? First of all, it's a personal decision, and you don't need insurance until you need it. And the reason I'm frugal, and some of my friends in the room here will say, you're actually not frugal, you're cheap. Okay. My dad trained me growing up. Insurance, no. You get self-insured. You can you don't need to buy that insurance. You don't need to buy insurance. 2 years before his last trip, right before the pandemic, he and my mom booked a trip on Viking Cruises. Great company, in my opinion. And 2 months before the trip, after the final payment had been made, it was like an $18,000 trip, my dad had a gallbladder attack. And he was beside himself, upset, non-refundable. My mother, who is asleep right now, I invited her to be on Zoom. She went to her file in their beautiful little apartment that they live in. They continue CCRC in Chicago. And she pulled out of the file insurance. She had paid the $1,800 premium for insurance. My dad started to cry. And they got 90% of the money back. In 2025, and I'll give a shout out to my friend, Doug Ellison, sitting over there, chat with him. He sells international travel insurance. The one thing I will share with you all, I'm going to be 62 next week. Trip cancellation, we could have a discussion. Rest in peace, my dad. After being insurance averse for so many years, peace of mind. Now, he did call me after I learned of this and saw he was beside himself because he was getting older. He asked me if he could get his premium back. And I said, Dad, no, you're not going to get the premium back. But I will share this opinion, and it is a very strong one. Find out what your insurance here domestically covers and what it doesn't. And from a evacuation or health insurance aspect, even if you have Medicare and all the parts A, B, D, C through Z, make sure you check. If you're over in the Philippines and something happens, what's primary coverage, what's secondary coverage, what's not covered, what's not, pay it. Sign up and get the insurance for peace of mind. And there's plans that you can buy if you travel 2 or 3 trips every year. You can buy for the year. You can, what the great joys of being with American Airlines for me now is I am, insurance is expensive. I mean, I'm gonna, my buddy over there, I've known him for now almost 20 years. You don't need it till you need it.
Well, can I say something about that real quick?
Sure.
So Mark and I have firsthand experience with Dan Travel Insurance, and I'm not talking about the one that you need just to be a scuba diver. I'm talking about the actual trip insurance. During 2022, he had a trip planned with Alex Mustard to Grand Cayman. That was a $6,000 trip. And the week before, we were in Mexico diving on a Paragon trip. And it was the time when you had to test for COVID right before you got on the plane the night before. You had to go through the app, and then you had to test again at the airport to re-enter the US. And he tested positive for COVID, so he couldn't leave Mexico, and he couldn't go on the Grand Cayman trip, which was non-refundable. But we had the Dan trip insurance, and they reimbursed us everything from the $6,000 Alex Mustard trip, as well as the extra week he had to stay in Mexico because he couldn't fly home to the US. So I recommend the Dan Travel Insurance.
Thank you for sharing that, Jennifer. That was you don't need it till you need it. And then, yeah.
I learned this year that if you're traveling with a cruise company, for instance, and you know what, Pat, you need to come up.
Yeah. come on up, and then the way the people on Zoom will, because these stories are great. I appreciate the interactivity.
So we were booked on a river cruise, and they usually include the airfare, or they try to include the airfare. And I specified what airline I wanted because I had miles, except if they book it, they pay for it and they get the credit. And you can't use, you don't get any points. Okay, because the cruise company is the one who bought it. I didn't buy the ticket. So you have to book your own airfare if you want to get credit for the miles. This was international fare that we didn't get miles on. So that's twice, yeah.
Thanks for sharing that. And so just to wrap up, I think when I was here, how many ever years ago, what I'm hearing in the last 5 minutes, and it's a good place to end on. And once again, thank you very much for having me. Appreciate the people on Zoom. I will leave my cards up here at the end if you have any questions. One of my great passions in life is helping people and serving people. But I was chatting with Leslie when I came in. She has laser memory of me being here. Things are a bit more complex in the 15, 20 years since I've been here, but that is really makes it important to ask. Because if you don't ask, and negotiate. So ask so that we're in a world now that consent, disclosure, and permission are low level with complexity. So speak up and ask, because the worst thing that can happen is, and ask your insurance agent. Hey, Doug, that's a little expensive, that premium. Do you have another option for me? Right? And a good insurance agent will say, let me check. And you might end up saving a little bit more on the premium, So I really appreciate, Maria, thank you again for texting me or for emailing me. Carl, thank you very much for setting up the images 4 hours after I sent them to you. That was wonderful. Dale, and Leslie, thank you. I look forward to being here maybe not another 20 years, but maybe in another 4 or 5 years and stuff. Thanks again, and have a lovely evening. Thank you.
I would encourage you that if you don't have somebody, go talk with Doug. I'm pretty sure he has a card that he'd be willing to share with you if you're looking for somebody. So it's kind of a win-win tonight. Last thing we have.
Doug and Adelina, his wife, that was very impromptu. They drove all the way down.
They're just good friends. They came down here impromptu just to support him. But if you want to talk to him about some business, he probably would not mind.
A benefit of the club.
Right. A benefit of the club. All right. Last thing we have is raffle.
All right. The first item is going to be the sarong, the
Can you turn the recording off?
wallet, and the